Hey, what's up everyone? Wanted to make a quick live. Hopefully everybody's having a good day. It's Friday here in Idaho. It's beautiful. We're gonna be talking in this live about why it's harder for women to lose weight than it is for men. This is a common frustration for women, but we're also gonna be talking about like what we can do to change that. Not necessarily to like you'll lose weight faster or better than men, but sometimes that actually happens. I have couples who will, I'll work with them one-on-one and like they'll lose at the same rate, which is really cool. But we're gonna be talking about some of the reasons why in general it's harder for women to lose weight, period, and harder than men, but then also what we can do about that. There's a couple of three things we can do. So the first reason, and we'll break this down, because what happens for women is they try to lose, and like especially if they're comparing to like a male or their counterpart or whatever it is, they're like, gosh, he can think about losing weight, and like he drops it fast. He cuts out soda, he drops 10 pounds, and the woman's like, nothing happened for me. So it's really common for this to happen. There's a couple of specific reasons why, and I want to talk about what there's 4 reasons why this happens most of the time, and then what we can do about those reasons. So the first one is just what we call the metabolism blues. For women, their metabolism just slows down or is slightly slower and slows down over time, oftentimes more than men. One of the biggest contributors to this, and one of the biggest contributors to metabolic rate in general, is your non-fat mass on your body. So how bones, organs, joints, and muscle. So how much of that do you have in comparison to the fat on your body? Well, women generally, just the way our bodies are, women have more fat on their body generally than men do. And that's one of the things that makes it harder to lose weight, because when we have more fat, it isn't as metabolically active, so it's not going to be burning energy as quickly. But also when you have more fat, then it makes it so that inflammation is higher, blood sugars are more out of balance, there's more stress on the body because of all this extra fat. That's why having fat, especially in our midsection, is so detrimental, is because it causes all these cascade of effects where inflammation happens and blood sugar and blood pressure and blood cholesterol and all these things start to get out of balance. So all of those things affect our metabolic rate at which we burn energy. So that's the first thing, is that just women generally burn less energy on a daily basis than men do. They're generally shorter, not all women, but of course they're generally shorter. They have slightly less muscle tone. That's the first major contributor. Now the second thing is the pregnancy effects that happen. Not every woman obviously has children, but for those who do, whether it's at the time or the effects afterwards, is that your body puts on fat in order to sustain a child, in order to grow a baby. Fat is a really great source of fuel for our body, and that's where like people will, well, should I do keto? Well, not necessarily, but it is a good source of fat for your body, and it helps build all sorts of cool stuff for our babies. So your body packs on fat, and then it makes it harder to obviously lose that, especially with busy, active, professional women who don't have a lot of time to invest their energy into eating the right way or figuring out how to eat the right way or doing a little more exercise and that kind of thing to help lose that. Now, of course, breastfeeding will help. But what happens is, in our day and age, where a lot of times women's hormones are out of balance, even before menopause, because we all have so much stress. So you have a woman who's never dealt with weight problems, or maybe a little bit. They start having a child, and they pack on however much weight, and then they have 5 extra pounds or 10 pounds they didn't lose. That's kind of the residual effects, right? And so they have this 5 or 10 pounds that now is a cascade effect, that now you have more fat compared to muscle on your body, so you're going to burn slower in general as far as your metabolism rate, which also causes more inflammation, more stress on the body, which makes your body store fat. So it just gets harder to store. Then you have another child, and the same thing happens, and another one, or sometimes it's just 1 or 2, but that'll accumulate over time in the body. So that effect from having a child, not that it has to be this way, it doesn't. It's because most women have some imbalances already going on before they have their children, whether it's a nutritional deficiency or a hormone imbalance or blood sugar imbalance. And they're not severe to where they're like taking medications or anything, but it's going on enough to where it makes it so they can't lose that 5 or 10 pounds. Now, unfortunately, in our day and age, most of what happens especially in the United States, not everybody here lives here in the United States, but in developed countries, most of the food we eat, most of the water we drink, the air that we breathe, the cleaners and soaps that we put on our bodies, especially for women with their body products that often go on more than men, they're all chemicals. A lot of them have chemicals. There's definitely chemicals and toxins and food that causes stress on the body. So even though you may have not dealt with issues before a child, because this is already going on in the body, you pack on that extra 5 pounds, then it makes it really hard to ever get rid of that, if that makes sense. It's not because you're necessarily doing anything wrong on purpose. It's just because of the nature of our environments that we live in. And so that has a residual effect over years that now as you get older, and now say you're a woman in their 40s or 50s or 60s, and this comes into our next point of why women have a harder time is their hormones shift when they get close to menopause. So premenopause hits and postmenopause or whatever it is, but when that hormone shift changes in the body, all the kind of initial effects of stress on the body, right? Kids, of course. Now, remember, stress isn't just emotional. We talk about this all the time. Yes, that is a huge part. Stress can be from emotions and having hard days and stressful jobs. So if you're a business owner, it's going to be even harder, or like a high performing professional. But we all have stress. We drive down the freeway. We got kids. We got bills. The food we eat is actually the biggest stressor on our body. The air we breathe, the water we drink can be a massive stressor on the body. People don't realize that it's not just like, oh, I'm eating too many calories. But even if you undereat, let's say here's your basal metabolic rate, so you're creating a deficit by cutting back on a couple hundred calories or whatever. But if these calories that you're eating are incredibly stressful on the body, they're inflammatory, they spike your blood sugars, are full of toxins, then it doesn't matter. It's going to cause stress and it's going to catch up with you eventually. When that usually happens is 40s, 50s, 60s, when you hit that menopause age or premenopause, and now you're gaining a little bit of weight. A lot of women will call it, like they have this new pot belly, they call it menopause, where it's literally they have a pot belly for the first time in their life due to menopause. Because it's not due to menopause, like that's what we have to understand. It's due to the effects that were happening far beyond or far before menopause, and then menopause hits, and all of this stress that's kind of compounded over time, all of a sudden we're gaining weight. Now this happens for women not even when they shift their hormones. It can happen all of a sudden, they're just like, I'm just gaining weight and I don't know why. Sometimes it's correlated, like you'll have a divorce, you'll have a job change, you'll move, and in the next couple weeks and months, you're like, gosh, I don't know why I'm gaining weight for the first time in my life, or I'm gaining more weight than I already had. Well, it's because of the compound effect of the stress. Stress is what causes all fat storage, because stress affects inflammation and hormones, which are really the two things that cause fat storage and weight gain. Okay, so we got kind of deep there. Hopefully this is making sense for you guys. So again, you've got this compound effect. In general, women will lose slower because they have more fat on their body in comparison to the other things in their body like muscle tone and that. Then children, not to say you shouldn't have kids, because we love kids, right? We have an 18-month-old little girl who's just the best thing in the world, but it takes an effect on the woman's body. They store more fat, and if there's other issues that are going on before it, so that it's not the having children, it's the issue. It's the other issues that lead up to that when you have your child, you can't lose that extra 5 or 10 or sometimes 20 or 30 pounds for some women. And then as you get older, hormones and things start shifting and changing, and the compound effect of all the stress, not just emotion. Remember, when I say stress, you have to think of stress differently. Your brain will send signals to your body to store fat, regardless if the stress is emotional. Like if you had a hard day at work, you drove down the freeway, if you got hit by a bus, or if you were being chased by a tiger, or you ate a candy bar. It doesn't matter what kind of stress that comes in or on or to your body, your brain will respond the same way. One of the major things is it stores fat due to metabolism slowing down to keep you alive during this stressful time. The reason why it wants to keep you alive is because it doesn't know how long it's going to be in this stress, and it might need more energy while it's stressful to run from the tiger, theoretically, right? Well, the problem is we don't have actual tigers, and our tigers never go away. So we eat food every day, like sometimes 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 times a day. Even that handful of M&Ms, even though it's maybe not a calorie surplus and you're eating under, this is why calories doesn't always work, is because you might be eating under calories and it's causing that stress, right? So the compound effect of that when you have children makes it harder to lose the weight. And then as you get older and you get in your late 30s, you got more stress, you got more kids, more job, more performance, more, whatever, clients. And then you get in your 40s and your hormones start to shift, or your 50s, and all of a sudden you got more weight gain or a pot belly for the first time, and it's just this compound effect. And then the things that used to work that you tried, like exercise and counting calories, which isn't really a fantastic way to lose weight in general, it's not that effective, or especially for long term, those things don't work anymore. They might have worked in the past just by sheer nature of you didn't have all this compound effect of stress and then toxins. We haven't talked about toxins, but that's a huge thing they get stored in fat cells. So when you got more toxic exposure, they're going to be put into your fat cells. So if you don't get them out, then they're just going to keep going into your fat cells. And that's why you gain weight back. And then all of a sudden when you're 50 or however old, 60, whatever it is, you're like, I can't lose weight at all. Like I lose it and gain it, but now it's like I can't even do it. So those are 3 of the major reasons why this starts to happen. Now, the last one I want to talk about is PCOS. The reason why I want to talk about this is it affects quite a few women. About 5 to 10% of women actually have PCOS. This is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's basically just a hormonal imbalance that makes it really difficult to lose weight, causes insulin resistance, and menstrual irregularities. That's a hard word to say there. But here's the beautiful thing, is the same things that causes hormonal imbalance are the same things that cause weight gain, and it's stress. It's this, well, if we're getting technical, it's the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis. It's your brain, when it's stressed, feels like it's just had all this stress compounding over time. It causes haywire in your body, and everything gets out of balance, and all of a sudden it's a syndrome. Now that just happens throughout your body, and it causes insulin resistance. Whether you have PCOS as a woman or insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes as a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. It's the same cause or similar causes. And so when you can address those causes, this is why I'm so big into addressing root cause problems of weight gain so that we can get the weight to go away. And I call it getting unbound. You're no longer bound to weight issues. You're no longer bound to weight controlling you and food controlling you. You're unbound. Because when you can address those root cause issues, you become unbound to ever dealing with weight again. It's really, really cool. So I have a lot of women who I'll work with specifically. They've got PCOS and we reverse their diabetes. We help them lose 70 pounds in 4 months and they go off their medications and they're like, I feel awesome. Now, again, I can't guarantee that. That's my disclaimer. But we see it happen over and over and over and over again. Like every woman who has PCOS, like they lose weight, they get healthier, they feel better because we're addressing those root cause issues. So here's a couple of things. This is what I wanted to get to. I wanted to cover all that because this is deep stuff, I know, but this is key stuff. If you've struggled with your weight, you got to know these things. It's not just like a calorie problem. It's not a willpower problem. I want you just to like free yourself of that. Stop feeling guilty that you don't have enough willpower. Stop feeling guilty that the discipline isn't there, that you're not motivated enough, right? Now, there is some key factors to, you can't just be eating Doritos all day long, and you gotta have some willpower, but it's bigger than that. It's our bodies sometimes, they work against us. And especially for women. This happens to men, but it's way more prevalent for women. And that's why I work with women, because most women don't get this. Most men don't get this. And that's why I've chosen to work specifically with women, is because you got to understand all of these things. As if I'm showing you a list here. You got to understand these 4 things: that metabolism is generally slower in women, then stress piles up over time, kids obviously and the effects of that, hormone shifts, and all of that compiled and compounded over time makes it store weight. And that's why it literally, and you may be one of these people, that I've watched women who will come to me and they're now 65. In fact, I just had a woman join our program today. She's going to start on Monday, and She's 60, almost 66, and she has struggled with weight for years. She's tried every diet out there, every fad, every personal trainer. She's been to doctors, she's gotten her blood labs tested, and no one can help her lose the weight. And I said, well, I can help you lose the weight, because no one's been looking at the root problems. And it's because her whole body is sending signals to keep storing fat. That's really what's going on. And so I'll see women in their 60s who for 30 years since they had their last kid, and now you might be in your 40s or you just barely had a kid or you maybe don't have kids yet, but this is really common. We're like, gosh, 11 years ago I had my last kid and that's when I struggled, is after my last kid. Or it never really was a struggle until I hit my 50s and then I've struggled for 10 years or whatever it is, right? So you don't have to have that struggle. It's about addressing these root cause issues. So here's a couple of things you got to look at when you're trying to lose weight so that you can become unbound, so that you can literally never deal with weight problems again. You're never bound by your weight. Weight and emotional issues and low confidence and lack of self-esteem and connections with your spouse or partner, avoiding social situations, like not being able to go out shopping and buy the clothes you want, this is binding for women. And I want to help them become unbound. So here's 3 things you got to look at when you do this. The first one is you have to look at hormone balancing, and specifically hormones that deal a lot with your blood sugars. You have to be able to balance blood sugars and insulin and cortisol and get the brain feeling like it's not so stressed, okay? So that's one of the major things you got to do. So if you're eating foods, this is why calories doesn't work. Now, it works in the short term. Don't get me wrong. You might be like, well, I hit the gym and I counted my macros and I lost 20 pounds. Okay, but talk to me in 20 years when you keep trying to do that and the weight keeps coming back and back and back and back. Now, you get to this point where the quality of your food is going to be far more important than the quantity. And I've talked about this before, but you've got to look at what you're eating first and foremost. Then you got to look at when you eat, and then you look at how much you're eating. But if you have those out of order and you're only looking at how much you're eating, you're going to have this off, and it's going to cause hormone imbalances. Because if you're at a deficit, and we talked about this, but like a lot of these trainers online, a lot of these programs, even shake programs and prepackaged meals and these bars and stuff, and they're like, yeah, just eat them. You'll be in a deficit. You'll be fine. But if the ingredients in those foods cause blood sugar imbalances and hormone imbalances, all of a sudden you're going to deal with weight gain. It may not be right then and there, but it's going to be a year down the road, 5 years down the road, 50 years down the road, when your body compounds enough and now it's a problem. This is why real food is so key. So that's the first thing. Now, the thing about real food is it helps with the second thing, which is inflammation. So if your brain has a dysregulation of your stress response, if you've had stress for 5-10 years and you've been dealing with your weight, that means your body's out of whack. It means your metabolism's slowed down, the stress response is dysregulated. And I know that because that's what causes weight gain. If you just reach down and grab your belly and you got love handles and you got this belly going on, you have a dysregulation in this axis. You have stress response happening. You got lots of inflammation happening. Now you can eat anti-inflammatory foods, which is key. So of course you can just Google that, but that's oftentimes not enough. You've got to regulate, because a lot of people will come to me and they're like, I've been eating vegetarian, I've been eating paleo, I've been eating clean, I did Whole30, but I couldn't keep the weight off. I couldn't lose it at all because it's bigger than that. If your brain just keeps sending signals to store fat and you change your food, your brain's still sending signals, it's still going to store fat, right? But you got to get rid of the inflammation. You got to balance hormones and get rid of the inflammation. Now, the other thing you have to do is you have to be able to do this long term and be able to manage stress and do it sustainably. So what I mean by managing stress is there's 2 ways to do this. You got to manage the stress on the outside of your body that's coming in, and this is done through coping mechanisms. This is done through meditations and how you think. I take women through a very specific process to help them rewire and reframe their brain so that they don't deal with stress as much. And if they do have stress, it doesn't impact their body the same way as with their nervous system. And that's why when I talk about high performance and coaching women on performing at a higher level, they're physically getting healthier and they're mentally getting healthier because the stress doesn't impact them the same way. So that's a major thing, is you got to not control because you can't control it, but you got to help reframe and shift the way you think about stress and cope with it so that it doesn't affect you coming from the outside. Then you also have to help the stress on the inside of your body. Okay, so you got to limit how much stress is coming and happening inside your body. Again, how do you do that? Real food. Now, again, real food is kind of a loose term there, but this is what I teach people is like, you got to eat real food and you got to make sure you're eating the right kinds and right amounts. It's not necessarily, less. Sometimes you have to actually eat more, which is one of the big problems that women have is they don't eat enough. And that's a huge problem. So it's finding that right balance for you, which is what we help tailor in for people and really tailor in that specific plan that's going to work. But that's the key is you got to balance hormones, specifically blood sugars. You got to reduce the inflammation, which those are very much tied together. And then you got to relieve stress from the external and the internal stress. So you got to support the body nutritionally as well as emotionally and mentally. So when you can get those things right, and then you learn how to do it in a way that's like, I can have, like it's Friday night, I guarantee you my wife and I are going to make some sort of like brownies or cake or chocolate chip cookies or something. We totally will. In fact, yesterday I was having chocolate chips and some nuts and trail mix and all this delicious stuff and cookies and some chips with some salsa. But you see, if you do it the right way, it won't cause the stress. That's the thing is if you do it the wrong way and you have chips, you take one chip versus another chip, just because they're both chips doesn't mean they're equal as far as the inflammation, blood sugar, and stress problems are going to cause. So that's the thing is learning how to do it sustainably. When you can do that and relieve stress from your body internally, as well as help regulate the stress coming in through your body and reframe it so you can think at a higher level, all of a sudden, you'll never deal with weight again. That's how I've kept the weight off for 7 years, and I've been able to have high energy and no pain and no sleep issues like I used to have for 7 years. And that's how we help women do it every day, is that they learn how to master their body and master their mind and do it in a way that's really long-term. So those are the key components that you've got to look at. I know this is getting really long. I did not intend it for be this long, but this is valuable. This is key stuff that you've got to have to understand what's going on inside your body with that make-believe list I'm showing you of those 4 things. And then you also have to be able to negate or help support and change the effects that are going on inside the body with the stress, the hormones, and the inflammation. So if this is helpful, please like the video, share the video, comment on the video if you have questions, if this is helpful. If you've gotten anything out of this, let me know. Comment it, just post it and say, yes, this is awesome. If you guys have any questions too, let me know. Happy to share more. Happy to make some lives for you guys specifically if you're looking for something, anything specific. So hopefully it's helpful. I'll see you guys later. Have a great weekend and check you later.